Starting to play guitar after 40, in my opinion, is way more advantageous than starting younger, with the exception of you have more years. Are you over 40 and learning to play guitar? Congratulations. There's some really good reasons why learning guitar after 40 can be advantageous. However, there are also some challenges to be aware of. The good news is, once we understand them, we can easily navigate them and have the best of both worlds. In fact, you're literally sitting in the catbird seat to excel at guitar if you heed what I'm about to share with you. Okay, so let's first address the pros for learning guitar after 40. So the first thing I want to talk about is mental stimulation. Learning guitar can help keep your brain active and engaged, which of course is beneficial for cognitive health. There are numerous studies that show the seemingly miraculous effects of how music, and specifically learning an instrument, helps the brain in a process called neuroplasticity. So it used to be believed that past a certain age, your brain just wouldn't grow any further and wouldn't learn anything. Now we know that's completely ridiculous. Most of us always knew that, but now the science is catching up with what it is that laymen always knew, that we could continue to learn, right? So not only is it rewarding through dopamine releasing aha moments, right? Whenever you have a new victory and that sort of thing, various size victories along this journey, it's been proven to help with cognitive function and memory. So also stress relief. Playing guitar is obviously a great way to unwind and reduce stress. This is why we call it playing guitar. It's not working guitar, it's playing guitar. Are there some disciplines? Yeah, sure. If you want to be better and better and better, then obviously the more dedicated you are and the more disciplined you are, then sky's the limit as far as you wanting to be a great guitar player. It can be a therapeutic escape from daily pressures. Now, one thing about being over 40 is your life experience, right? Older learners often bring a wealth of life experience and patience, which can make the learning process more enjoyable and less frustrating. After teaching over 10,000 one-on-one lessons, I would have older students, I would have younger students, and I never saw a difference in their degree of wanting to learn and their ability, their speed in learning. There was never a difference between the youngers and the olders, but there was a philosophy difference that I'll address a little bit later here, okay? So, achieving a new skill, later in life, obviously can be very rewarding and boost your self-esteem. Another thing that it does is that you have social opportunities. So, joining jams, going to see, open mic nights, getting together with other guitar players and playing. This can all help you to meet new people and build a community around, a shared interest. And guitar players, we're a tight-knit bunch, okay? So it's great for that sort of thing. Now, another thing about being over 40 is that you have flexibility and focus, where, many older learners have more control over their schedules, allowing for consistent practice and that sort of thing. Whereas when you're younger, you've got school and you've got work, you have all these other distractions. Whereas after 40, you start settling in, man, and you start getting to a place where you're like, I know what I want. And so those are the things that to me are the many, many advantages to being over 40. Now, let's talk about the cons so that we can easily navigate these. And again, it's the best of both worlds because you've got all these advantages that I just mentioned, and the cons are not that big, but we do need to know them. We need to be able to navigate them, right? So number one is tech challenges. With apps, computers, that sort of thing. Typically, when you get older, you don't want to be working with electronics as much. I know I don't. As I get older, I don't want to mess with stuff like that as much. I want to be able to look and learn from watching and that sort of thing. But my friends, the amount that you can glean from these apps, heck, all of my courses are online. Ultimate Guitar, like to learn tabs and guitar parts, or Guitar Toolkit, the various metronome apps and learning apps that map the guitar fretboards out and what have you. There's a wealth of information out there, and so much of it is free. So don't be afraid of tech. Lean into it, at least the easier stuff, okay? Another thing that over 40 folks typically run into is they run into time constraints or balancing work, family, and other responsibilities, that sort of thing, right? When we were in our teens and in our 20s, we didn't have as many bills and as many things that were over our head that we have to think about. So what I like to do is I like to encourage my older students to think about, think about when you were a kid and you would conjure well, you didn't have to conjure them when you were a kid. Now you have to conjure them, but conjure those feelings of just, I don't want to say irresponsibility, but having fun. You know what I mean? You've worked hard in your life, man. Have some fun. Enjoy the instrument. When you're playing that instrument, when you're learning it, just lean into it and have a lot of fun. Don't worry about your responsibilities. They'll be there when you're done. Delve into this. It's a meditation, if you will. Okay. So, when we're older, sometimes we find it harder to do these things. But if you know exactly what you're going after and you just discipline some time every day to do this, you're gonna get better and you're gonna have all the life experience to guide you there quicker than when you were younger. Learning curve. Let's talk about this. So after teaching, I said this, after teaching over 10,000 one-on-one lessons, I can honestly say that my older students didn't learn any slower or any faster than my youngers. But the belief system can be different. So beware of that. What I mean by that is I would see older students come in and they would get frustrated because as a kid, you're literally, your brain is in a different state. It's in more of a theta state when you're younger. And we start getting out of that state. It's literally a vibrational state. It can be measured scientifically. And your brain is at this certain state. It's more of like a meditative, dreamy-like state. That's why kids are always heads in the clouds sort of thing. And some of that doesn't wear off until you're well out of your mid-20s or so. The brain doesn't even finish growing until you're like around 25 years old, somewhere around that age. With that being said, it's easy to get frustrated and to think because you're not in that play kind of area of your life anymore. Now you're like, might have business and I got to do this and it has to be done at this time. And so you're going to just the sheer paradigm of looking at a challenge is going to be different. You're not going to learn any slower. But beware of the frustration. The initial stages of learning can be frustrating, especially if the progress feels slow. But again, it's all an opinion. So you might say, I'm learning too slow. According to what, right? So that's just something to be mindful of. Some additional insights is you want to set realistic goals, okay? And I want you to set achievable goals and celebrate smaller victories along the way. So meaning learn a song, learn a riff, learn a chord. Literally be happy with those small victories. Those small victories turn into huge victories. But if you just focus on the small victories, you'll get the big victories. They happen in the background, okay? Also, choose the right guitar. Make sure that you have a guitar that really speaks to you. I cover that in my beginner courses. I'm not going to go over that right now. You can get those for free in the link in the description of the video. Okay, and again, regarding technology, take advantage of this, my friends, okay? The apps that I told you about, the lessons that I'm telling you about, my YouTube videos, I have, I think, over 3,000 here on YouTube now. Take advantage of these lessons and these apps, these YouTube tutorials, right? They can provide flexible, ways of learning that are literally fit into your schedule because it's whenever you want, right? So my friends, that's pretty much what I have for you today. Take advantage of all these great resources that are out there. If it's not from me, if it's from one of my other buddies out there that are teaching guitar, then, go ahead and jump into something. It's really great if you're in some sort of step-by-step something, friends, because if not, you're not going to do as well as if you were in something step-by-step so you know where you should be at during the process. So to sum this whole thing up in a nutshell, starting to play guitar after 40, in my opinion, is way more advantageous than starting younger, with the exception of you have more years. But in regards to who you are as a person, you have all that life experience, you can navigate things so much better, and how much energy is lost by just looking in the wrong place, wasting time, that sort of thing. Whereas now, as an older adult, you can actually say, this is what I'm going to do. This is my focus. I'm going to practice this much a day and I'm going to kick ass. And my friends, I promise you, you can excel and be anything that you want to be after 40 years old playing guitar. But it does take the motivation. I mean, it does take the discipline, which is, preempted by the motivation. The motivation is just finding stuff that you love. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.